Maybe. Hey, welcome to the Comic Watchers Show. I'm your host, Matt Meyer. With me, as always, is Nicholas Osborne, hailing from East Texas. Mike Eakins is dying of allergies somewhere in Virginia tonight, so he couldn't make it. Mike, we love you. We'll see you next week. Our guest this week is the one and only Tim Sheridan, or as he's known on campus, Big Timbo. But he is an awesome...
Who told you that?
Comics. He's an awesome new voice in the world of comics. He wrote Future State Teen Titans, Future State Shazam. He's got Teen Titans Academy coming up, and he has a wealth of awesome writing credits in the world of animation, including from DC Superhero Girls, Sergeant Rock Short, Teen Titans Go, Scooby-Doo, my God, just about everything. Justice League Action. He wrote the Reign of Superman animated movie. So, I mean, Tim, you're kind of a guy about DC.
I've been kicking around there a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, just tell us a little bit about your background. Why DC? I mean, did it just happen that way? Did you fall into it by accident? Would it have been Marvel if it had been a different day of the week?
Let's call it a happy accident. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. This is really
definitely
fun. Total happy accident because I am a DC kid. I mean, I grew up, Batman was my way in, and that just sort of branched out from there. The first Superman books I ever got were Reign of the Supermen. And then years and years later, they asked me if I wanted to do the movie, and I just couldn't believe it. So it's kind of random. If Marvel had wanted to hire me, okay, sure. Like I think that I could have had some fun over there. I could have some fun over there, but DC is in my blood.
I got you.
Yeah. So it's fun. So I started in animation on a show called Justice League Action, which is kind of a sort of a sleeper show because it looks a little bit like you're getting a kids show. Mm-hmm. But when you watch it, you get the clear idea pretty quickly, I think, that the people who made the show are grown-up fans who grew up with these characters, who did everything we could to try to, make the show watchable for everyone and, make it fun for parents and kids to watch it together. And so we had a ton of fun. I have jokes in that show that I'm just like, I can't believe they're letting me do this joke. I have this joke with Booster Gold, who's just my favorite thing on that show. And Jim Krieg, who was one of the producers on that show, I basically was just aping Jim Krieg's Booster Gold voice because he writes Booster Gold so well. And I have this one joke where he sees Superman and Supergirl fighting each other, and he's watching them, and he's like, he says to somebody, normally when something like this happens, it's because I, went back in time and swallowed a butterfly. But this time I know it's not me. And the guy's like, how do you know? And he says, because I switched to caterpillars. Now, for me, there's no funnier joke in the world for me.
It's also a very Booster thing to say.
I'm literally the only person I think who would laugh at that dumb joke. And but they let me do it. And I think there's no way a kid's going to really go for that joke. So anyway, I had a great time on that show. That led to me getting to do Reign of the Supermen. That led to me getting to do Superman Man of Tomorrow that came out this past year, and some other stuff. You talked about Sergeant Rock short, but we got maybe some other things coming down the pike. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe someday. I hope.
And now you're writing comics. And we're sitting around talking about how cool this future state stuff is, this or that. And Cody, whom you know, and he says, man, Nick, have you guys read this Future State Teen Titans book? It's amazing. And I'm like, no, who wrote it? And he says, Tim Sheridan. Who the hell is Tim Sheridan?
Who the hell is
and Tim so Sheridan? I read it, and I'm like, holy shit. This thing reads like somebody that has been writing comics for years. Like, typically there's this awkward transition from one media to the other, right? And no, didn't happen this time. Obviously, love and understanding of the characters and the lore and the corner of the DCU that they inhabit. But that's one thing. The other thing itself, the craft simply doesn't come naturally, at least at first, to a lot of first-time writers that are crossing over from other media. What was that process like for you?
Well, let me thank you for being so kind. But I look at, it's funny. I look at those things. I look at Future State Shazam, which I also did, and Teen Titans, and I just feel like, I've learned so much in such a short amount of time that I would just love to get another crack at it. But it was not an easy transition at first. I mean, there's somebody at DC had the, I would say, wise idea to bring in some folks from TV and some folks who had written in the DC universe, multiverse, omniverse, and they said, let's give these folks a shot because they understand the characters. They know a lot of the history and the continuity and the canon. And also they're accustomed to writing for a visual medium. So however, they are very different things. Writing for animation versus writing for comics, as I've learned. To tell you about the process, I think the biggest thing I've learned, the biggest thing I wish I had kind of known right out the gate, but you don't know until you start doing it, is the collaborative nature of working with the artist and how much comic book artists bring to the page. Of course, I know that artists are amazing and do amazing work, but there's the way that the animation process is broken up. You write the script goes to like the director and the storyboard artists, the story artists. They create the storyboards that then go to the animation house, and then they take those storyboards and make, so it's this sort of segmented process, and then it all comes back. And as the writer, I give you the script, and then I don't see the movie until the premiere. So you just kind of have to hope and pray, but that it works out the way you wanted it to. With comics, it's been, me working with, Eduardo Pansica on Shazam, Future State, and then Future State Teen Titans with Rafa Sandoval, who I'm doing Teen Titans Academy with. I just, first of all, just getting to be in the room through the whole process is incredible. Getting to suggest, if we do this, maybe this will help sell the beat more. And for them to say, well, if they say this, maybe that'll help sell it again. It's a different process than we go through typically in animation. As writers, producers go through this in animation where you're really heavily involved in the whole process. But I was not prepared for how much I was going to get to interact with the rest of the team. What I wish I had understood is and this is so stupid because I'm a comic book fan and I've read comics all my life. How did I not put this together? That comic book artists have a capacity to bring huge emotional weight to a 2D drawing that you don't always get from animation. And they can really sell a dramatic beat on someone's face in a way that you would get in a live action version from an accomplished actor playing a character like, Nightwing or Batman. So that was an exciting surprise that I felt like an idiot for not thinking that of course they were going to be able to. I think I'd just been in animation so long. I tended to sort of have to. I had to think like, well, how do I sell this moment that they're considering what that person said, but do that for animation? Like, how do you show somebody considering something that someone just said, but animate it? But like, the comic book artist comes in and they just, have somebody, just like with, a look, and it's like, yes, that's exactly the moment that I wanted. So there's that. The other thing that's incredible is the amount of energy, of movement that they bring to still panels. I can't believe how the experience of, reading a comic, it's so kinetic. There's so much motion, so much movement. And that is, just because these artists are geniuses. And I'm just so lucky to get to work with people like Rafa. He's just, I gush about him. Every time I get a page delivered, I run around the house screaming like a little kid. Today, oh man, I wish I could tell you about the page he sent today. Oh man, it's the kind of thing that's, I think there's a lot of fans who are going to stand up and cheer with, because of what he was able to do. Exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Rafa Sandoval's art. Most recently,
better and better.
All kinds of great stuff. But yeah, most recently I saw him on The Flash with Williamson. And
better and better and better though.
Artist. Just really understated. Maybe even I hate to say this because it might sound a little negative, but maybe a little underappreciated, but just a solid artist.
Let me tell you where he's not underappreciated is right here, because I'm constantly blown away, and I'm spoiled rotten. I'm just completely spoiled. But you know what? I felt that way about Eduardo as well. I was really blown away by what Eduardo was able to do with Future State Shazam. But we've just Rafa and I have had more time together, doing this Academy book. And, Rafa designed these characters and we went through that process and because I'm introducing some new kids, one of the things I said early on going into Teen Titans Academy was, look, if I'm going to really sell this idea that the Titans are training a new generation of heroes, then we got to see the new generation of heroes. We have favorites from the last few years, but there's got to be new kids coming up too.
Sure.
And
there's plenty of teenagers.
with and metahumans, teenage metahumans, and not
right.
But these new kids, I just have such a huge place in my heart for them, and what Rafa has been able to do to bring them to life is unreal. So it's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, and it's such a unique opportunity to not only put your stamp on Teen Titans just as a writer and a creator, but also to introduce those new characters that may well be, the next defining generation of character of the team, or the next fan favorites, or whatever.
May well be. What do you mean?
Oh, we don't have number one yet.
Like, we haven't met them. No, I'm totally kidding. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It's like, that's what's so cool about the Academy concept is, it's a great place to try some new things.
Yeah. Bring
in some new ideas and let's see if they catch fire with people. And let's see, maybe there's a character that'll stand out for folks, or characters. The thing is, there are so many varying opinions among fans, me included. And, the thing is, some people are going to love some of the new kids. Some people are going to love the OG new Teen Titans being in there. And like me, like, I couldn't believe it the day they told me we were going to get to use them. So there's a little something for everybody.
Yes. Nick, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, it's such an important concept, really. But first, I've got to touch on Cody, who kind of helped set this up, who is our content manager here at Comic Watch, has been your biggest cheerleader. And I've got to give a shout out to Cody, because I hadn't read your work before he came into our Slack channel and was basically yelling at everybody to read anything from Tim Sheridan.
Oh my gosh, really? Well, first of all, I knew Cody was really smart.
We actually call him Professor Cody around here for that very reason.
True. Last year, he had a pick for Stephanie Phillips as his kind of star of 2020. It was now taking over Harley Quinn. Tim, you are Cody's pick this year for 2021 for the star pick. I think it's a strong choice, and with what we're talking about even this evening, it's easy to see that you have an awesome future ahead of you in comics.
We'll see from your mouth. I mean, I'm just so happy. That's so sweet and really intimidating. But I know Stephanie.
Don't screw it up.
I think honestly, though, I can't express enough, like, for this kid who grew up with Batman and Detective, and also my first trade paperback was Son of Origins of Marvel Comics. I was obsessed with Iron Man, and for a kid who grew up with comics like all of us, and now I'm in a place where they asked me to come in and see if I could make anything happen, and for them to give me my shot is really nice. It's an honor, and it's a privilege, and it's, as a fan, one that I hope I don't ever take for granted. But I'm being honest with you when I say Future State was a real trial by fire, and sure. it was a tough thing to do. We really bit off a lot there. We were trying to tell a story that kind of took place over a bunch of different titles without really having the benefit of having a main crossover book. And also it was all out of sequence and timey-wimey. We made a very difficult job for ourselves. But the thing about Future State, my part of Future State, is it was always intended as a prologue to Titans Academy. Mm-hmm. It is where it's the idea of people who say past is prologue. Well, we decided to say, well, what if the future is prologue? Let's just see if we can tell a story that way. And there are varying opinions about whether we are able to or not. But I think that for there's some people who read Future State who say, well, why do I even want to read Teen Titans Academy now? Because I know how it's all going to end. And, I try to be coy about it. I'm just like, you guys, it's comic books. Like,
right.
Anything's possible. And without, I'm not going to give anything away, but I will say that I didn't go into it thinking this is the end that I'm writing. I went in thinking this is an end that I'm writing. This is how things could play out based on a certain series of events. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like a choose your own adventure then, it's like, sometimes you get the good, successful ending, and sometimes you get the dark, ending where the book's over or you even know it. And
you have gotten bitten by you're dead. I used to hate that.
So, that's not, I don't speak for the larger, editorial and what DC wanted to do it and wants to do with that. That's just how I approached it in the writing. And so that's, as a prelude and as a prologue to Teen Titans Academy, which is, starting, next week it'll be playing out, or I should say, I guess, starting on the 23rd of March.
Yes.
And it's
definitely.
It was not just you having a trial by fire, but DC, like you said, made a really calculated move to bring in not just new voices from animation, but all kinds of media to shepherd this event. And maybe people like Stephanie Phillips that were on the bubble of popularity, and I think a lot of people were a little leery of that at first, but I think in the end the results speak for themselves.
When you say shepherd too, it's kind of I would love to, take credit or blame for anything, but DC, they have an editorial staff. There's a, we were given a set of parameters and said, here, what would you do with this? so I said, here's what I would do. And they said, great, let's go through the process. And we went through the process. And I say all this because I think it's important for me to say that, I haven't done anything at DC Comics that was not done step by step, arm in arm with Mike Cotton, who's my editor. Mm-hmm. And, in terms of that Future State story that crossed over between Shazam and Teen Titans and Black Adam and Flash, we call it the continuity. My friend Jeremy Adams is another writer, and I we that's what we call it, because we feel like Cotton's at the center of all of it. And so it's you don't just write in a vacuum. You're there, you're being led. Cotton has taught me everything I know so far. I hope that we get to keep making these Teen Titans books. He came to me and said, here's the concept, Teen Titans Academy. And here are some of the general things I want to hit. How would you do it? And I said, here's how I would do it. And I laid out some stuff. And so I would love to say I was like the genius who walked in with Teen Titans Academy. No, this is it's a team sport. And that goes from editorial to, obviously to art and, brilliant lettering from Rob Lee that I've gotten to who I've gotten to work with. That's something I wasn't expecting. I never felt like animation was quite the team sport that comics are. Everybody wants to be on a team. Everybody wants to be a Titan.
Well, hell yeah.
Definitely. And I kind of want to circle back around to the characters that you're introducing in Teen Titans. And one of the big ones, Red X, who we know from the animated series and who's now coming over into comics. It's a pretty big deal and has a lot of people talking. I just want to talk about maybe a little bit of the process and decision making that went into bringing this character in and what the execution looked like as you were greenlit to do it.
Thank God. I thought your question was going to be, okay, so my question is, who is it?
Oh, it's coming.
Starfire, obviously.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Wait, who did you say?
Starfire.
It's Starfire. Yes.
Obviously.
I can neither confirm nor deny that it's Starfire.
There you go, Internet.
Yeah, I love the mystery in the comics. We just did this with the new Green Ranger and Power Rangers, and it went on for a few issues. It's fun. That's part of the fun.
Well, yeah, that's part of the
answer right now.
But that is the DNA of Red X, as far as I'm concerned. And even in the first appearance of Red X on the animated show, you spent the episode, the Titans at least, spent the episode with the question, who is Red X? And in that first episode, we learned that it was Dick Grayson. That was put to bed. But then they brought him back. But it was a new guy, and we never learned in the show who it was. And so that has always been part of the DNA of Red X, the excitement of who is it? And so I know I saw a few people were upset that we didn't reveal who he was in Future State. And I was like, you guys, buckle up. This is a story. Like, get settled in, because we're going to tell you a tale. And we're not going to give you all of it right away. It's these things are coming. But I'm a huge fan of Red X. It's an honor for me coming from animation to then bring a character from animation over.
Right.
I teased this at a convention last year that everybody was so excited about Red X that they didn't realize that I was also bringing over another character that debuted in animation. And I don't know that anyone tracked who that was. Did you notice?
I don't think so.
I don't. I don't think. Maybe I shouldn't even tell you. Maybe I should just leave it hanging, and you're going to go off and rack your brains to figure out who the other animation exclusive character previous to appearing in.
No, I have to say that I guess I'm a little too old to have seen some of the animation that you've worked on. That it's as it was coming out, because I don't know. I'm just not usually that guy. Nothing against it, of course. So, I mean, Nick, you have any
I
inklings?
know I should have this one, but I really
You
don't.
should.
And now I'm already racking my brain, and I'm in the middle.
Honestly,
I've got to wait until after.
It's a tough one, and I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you, it's a tough one. It's the unkindness. The unkindness, who is in Future State, who we see Raven evolve or devolve maybe into, was created by well, I was talking about Jeremy Adams and Marley Halpern Grazer, who wrote Teen Titans Teen Titans versus Teen Titans Go. Am I getting the title right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a sequel to the Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So yeah, The Unkindness premiered in animation form first, and then
I had forgotten about that. Now I am a huge Teen Titans Go fan, and
good. Well, then I wrote one episode. So
I know the Soviets,
them Soviet boys,
them Soviet boys.
Yeah, I had this idea. I was like, listen, I went to Michael Jelinek and Aaron Horvath, and I said, I just have this idea about them learning about the concept of montage and overusing it, and in a very breaking the fourth wall way, which they were always so good at doing, on that show.
Yes.
And I remember Michael saying, "Yeah, but we really need an episode about Robin's birthday." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I can come up with something for that." And I'll never forget. This never happens. This never happens.
Right.
Michael said, "No, man. If you want to write the montage episode, that's what I want you to write. Write the montage episode."
And it's so perfect for that show.
And they helped me make it. They helped me make it better, and it was great. So yeah, it's you don't get that a lot. Like I say, those guys are gold. I love them. That show is lightning in a bottle. It's a lot of fun. I love that it exists alongside Glenn Murakami's Teen Titans show, and I love that it literally in that movie we just referenced. I love that that it exists alongside Teen Titans Academy and New Teen Titans and the Titans TV series. And, the beauty of DC is that we all get to play in a great, big, beautiful multiverse, and everybody can get along.
Yeah. There is something for everyone.
Yeah. And there's nothing about Teen Titans Go that, interferes with anything that's going on in the comics. They get to be in their own separate parts of the multiverse, and we can enjoy both for what they are, all of them for what they are. I love that. I absolutely love it.
And it kind of makes those crossovers a little bit more exciting, like when you see Red X come in from the animation into comics, because you have a sense of familiarity with these characters and you already care about them to some degree. And we saw it a little bit with the Arkham Knight. And we saw they took a totally different route with that because it debuted in the video game, and then they came into the Detective Comics run. But is that something that you feel like maybe you would like to do more in the future of, and bringing these characters from other mediums into comics?
I mean, me personally, no question. I love the all skate. I just think bring everybody in. Yeah. And let's have fun and see how they exist in this part of the multiverse. I'm all into that, but that's those are the kinds of decisions that at this moment in my career are way above my pay grade. Sure. I'm just happy to have a seat at the table and be invited to the party.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just really fits with my whole philosophy. It's all rich fodder. We should be able to explore all of it and have some fun and
tell some good stories.
Yeah. Right. And then also, create some new stuff. I mean, look, nothing would please me more than getting to see a character that I've created in Teen Titans Academy go on to have a life outside of the book in animation or in live action or somewhere else. I mean, that would be incredible. Even if I have nothing to do with it, it would just, I just love the characters so much that I want them to grow up and have adventures and go to other places, hopefully with a very handsome royalty check. No, I'm just
obviously.
That sweet comic book money.
Yes.
It is important, being additive rather than subtractive to the thing you love, right? Like anyone can come in and write a story where half your beloved characters get killed.
Yeah,
and
that's the problem with me, though, saying that is everybody looks at me and they're like, yeah, but you killed everybody in Future State. They're like, that's fair. But you just have to stick with me. I promise you, just stick with me.
Yeah.
You saw what I did at the end of Teen Titans, in Future State Teen Titans, I tried to turn it into something hopeful.
Yeah, no, it definitely does end on a hopeful note, despite all the terrible things that happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, the way Red X uses the H dial and getting to call forth the spirits of all the Titans we've lost, and have that moment of reunion, and that was everything to me. That was the thing that I wanted to get to, and to say that what they quote Miguel Montez as saying, which is that we're never really gone. They're never really gone. All of these, which is kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing because it's comic books,
Right.
They're never really gone, right? But also it means something to Miguel, who calls down the power of these people as his power. And it means something that they're not gone because they give him something and they give all of us something still. We get to still call on them. That was the thing I wanted to get to. And then, of course, after that, I left you with some really awful carnage and terrible things after that in the book. But that is at the heart of sort of where I come at these stories. And that's where I am with Teen Titans Academy. I want to tell something hopeful, but I also know that this is a dangerous job these characters do and want to do, and consequences have to be observed. If not, we don't know the stakes. We don't know what they're putting on the line, and then they just become funny people with funny powers. But they're more than that. They're heroes, and what makes a hero isn't the ability to bend steel. It's what they do with that power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Titans want to teach these kids.
So let's get into a little bit deeper of the Academy concept, because there's definitely a viewpoint that the Titans themselves are still pretty young. And some are just barely beyond being kids themselves. What by that token, what I don't want to say what right, that sounds wrong, but how are they teachers exactly, being so close in age to their students? How does that dynamic look?
So let me say, first of all, I wish that I could say what the ages are of characters and be very clear about who and unfortunately that stuff's, like I said, above my pay grade. And so what I've tried to do is come at this without looking at age as a number of the character, but coming at it from the concept of age in terms of how long we, the fans, have lived with these characters in continuity. If everything that came before now matters and informs who the characters are, then the original New Teen Titans they're not kids. They can't be kids. They're not, they can't be teens. They have to be adults who have gone through some stuff and have something to offer the next generation.
Right.
So
experience. Yeah.
And so whether we put a hard number on what the age is, I think that's less important than the concept of they have seen some stuff. And they've been around for a little while now. Yeah. And they're
Nightwing used to have a mullet, for God's sake. I mean,
oh man, if I could bring that back.
In the disco suit.
Well, I tried. I kind of brought
color action.
I tried to bring back the disco suit in Future State. So that was what I wanted. I wanted his future suit to be an adaptation of the disco Nightwing. And obviously we had a little bit of a disagreement about the editorial and myself. Poor Cotton, he was just like, don't do this to me. And I said, but I love the disco suit. And he said, what if we do an adaptation of this, 90s look for Nightwing? And so that's what we ended up doing. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Totally. I'm in. So anyway, so it's less important to me about the age as a number than it is to say they're adults. They are and therefore they have things that they can teach the kids. That the kids are teens and preteens because it's Teen Titans, and they're in school. It's basically a high school. But there is a complication with the last group of Titans, right? Because we still have Crush and Roundhouse,
Red Arrow.
Yeah. So the way I designed it is that, essentially that's the senior class. They're the older kids at school. They are active duty Teen Titans who are on the roster, who go out on those field missions at the direction of the faculty, the OG new Teen Titans, but that the new kids are the freshmen. They're the ones who are living the high school life and figuring out what this crazy place is,
Right.
So there's sort of three segments to it. In a perfect world, if the book was wildly successful, I'd have 3 Titans Academy books out. I would have the freshman class, the senior class, and the faculty. They would all have their own books, So it makes it tough because those are a lot of characters.
Sure.
And
it's a huge balancing act.
Say again?
I said it's a huge balancing act.
It's a huge balancing act to try to get a satisfying story in for all of these guys. Is it's the constant struggle of my life right now is to try to make sure everybody is heard and that we get the fun and excitement of these new characters. Plus, we get to see some fun stuff with the older characters. I need some reassurance from you that Roundhouse's mom shows up at some point. I love that.
No lie, she is like my favorite supporting character out of the Glass.
She's great, isn't she? Yeah. Well, as you know, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Oh yeah, I'm throwing it out there. That was its own little lightning in a bottle.
Roundhouse is interesting in this story. The problem with having the active roster Teen Titans, as I call them, the Teen Titans. The Titans are the faculty. The Teen Titans are, Crush and her team, and then there's the freshman kids, the students. But the problem for the Teen Titans is that they are out on field missions. So it's I wish I got to spend more time with them and have them at school more. So when they are there, I try to make sure we're getting, some satisfying, fun stuff with them. I think that Roundhouse in particular, I had this idea I don't want to spoil anything, but I had this idea that what is it like at school when you are at school and a new kid comes to school who is basically you, who has all the same interests you do, who everybody talks to the way they talk to you. They see you as the same type of person. And you kind of feel a little displaced. It's like, what is my place now, And that was something I think, Roundhouse kind of falls into that category. That's sort of his story in the beginning of this book, is dealing with one of the new kids. But that's all I'll say about that.
All right. I'd like to kind of dive into the whole concept of what Future State is. We've had some discussions with some other creators who are part of it, and we've gotten the idea that some of Future State is what is described as an end goal, but as like you said, it's comics, so anything can happen. And then we're going to work backwards and kind of see what happens to lead up to that. But what we see in the Future State Teen Titans and also Shazam is pretty dark stuff. I mean, some of it's pretty heavy and it's surprising. But I also want to see, how do you carry that tone, the kind of the darker, heavier tone with also some of the lightheartedness that we associate with Teen Titans and even Billy with Shazam. And the balancing act on that isn't necessarily character history, but more so character consistency and making sure, we feel like these are the characters that we love.
That's a great question. And I think that, the beauty of then, of getting to go back now, not everybody got the opportunity that I got to get to go back and start telling the story from sort of the beginning, right? With the first day of school. And the first day of school is, and you saw it if you read Infinite Frontier #0, the kids are excited. It's the first day of school and not just any school, right?
Yeah.
And it's a giant. We talk about that in the first issue. There's a level of hopefulness and excitement, that needs to exist, and because it's real. Because it's honest. That's what you feel in those moments. Do you feel trepidation and fear as well? I think, yes, you do. But I was less concerned about that. What I really wanted to explore was the excitement of turning the page on your life. These are kids who don't have the kind of mentors that the Teen Titan or the Titans are, or the Teen Titans. And this is their chance to have that kind of mentorship. And when you're a kid who with some kind of special powers, and you're the only kid in school who has those powers, it's a very isolating thing. And now you're getting to go be a part of something. It's like when we go to San Diego Comic-Con, there is something about what everybody saves up their money. And we all, that's our big vacation for and it's hard work, Comic-Con, like as a fan, but we love it because we're part of something bigger with a group of people who are just like us. Even though we all have our own special powers, we're all in this together. And so that's the excitement that I wanted to bring. So, in the beginning of the story, having seen Future State, that things, can get dark for these characters and for their story. Because that's a very comic book thing. Consequences like we see in Future State, which are they're big, they're world ending. Those are things that's a possibility that we face every day that we put on the mask, that's the thing. So that consequence, seeing it in the beginning is the point of that is to give the reader the reminder that they're, even in the midst of all the excitement and the hopefulness and the turning the page in a new generation, there are always stakes to what these kids are doing, and not just the kids, but all of these characters.
Yeah.
Like I say, that, the difference between, being somebody with powers and being a hero. I mean, there are huge consequences available to them. And we always need to remember that. And so that's to me, I don't know if that really answers your question, but for me, that's the excitement of getting to start with a very dark story that is Future State, and then getting to switch gears and tell a more hopeful, optimistic story with Teen Titans Academy, always knowing that it can and maybe will take a turn, a couple of years early. So, Future State, I think, is a couple of years after the Academy. So, I'm sure I got the timeline exactly right on that. We changed it a couple of times in the process, but so it's coming sooner than anybody thinks.
Right.
We got some time.
So obviously in the last volume, Damian split from the team and he's going over to his own book by Josh Williamson. But there's some connective tissue there, obviously. Without obviously getting into things that you can't talk about, are there any plans for Robin drop in on the team at any point?
Right. I mean, I can't. I can't
get specific.
I can't get into specifics on anything like that. I will say, in general, I think everyone should understand the way sort of the process works, in editorial. And, there are some characters that are just not available to me.
Sure.
In my story. And then, but there are, but sometimes we can also work that out. And, like you see with, Tom Taylor's doing an amazing Nightwing book that I hope everybody's reading. And, but Nightwing is a character in Teen Titans Academy. And that really, to me, is hope for comics in general, because that's what it was when I was a kid. I ran to the Douglas Drug, was where I got my comics, the drugstore and the spinner rack. And I picked up Batman and Detective Comics, and I read them the same day. And sometimes Batman was in Gotham City in Batman, and he was in Markovia or whatever in Detective Comics, and I never bothered me. I was like, great, more Batman. And that's how I feel about, the way we're using Nightwing. And I hope the way we get to use other characters as well. I will say there is, Teen Titans Academy is a school, and, there's a thing that happens at school where, there's a thing called homecoming, and, people sometimes come back, you never know. I hope that we, get to see some other characters that maybe are not expected to be seen in the story. But we say some of that is because I just don't know at this point, But
it's also part of the fun of like the Academy concept as well, is that you can have these people coming in and out, and also your mainstays in these different classes like you described, and it sets up a great foundation for a story that can continue past Future State in its own series.
And that's the idea too with the freshman class. It's the same with the faculty. It's the kids that are freshmen now. Let's just plot it out. We could see them become the sort of Teen Titans senior class that we have now. We can see some of the senior class, like, Roundhouse now could end up someday becoming faculty, or we can bring back legacy characters and introduce them. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is to agree with you that I think the concept affords us a lot of opportunity to explore the legacy and also set up more of a legacy for the future for some of these new kids. There's always going to be new teens with problems and with powers, and hopefully we'll get to meet some more along the way too. But please, one class at a time.
So what sort of inspiration did you take for the high school-ish setting, for lack of a better term? I mean, I'm thinking like OG X-Men, Buffy. What's going through your brain?
One word: Degrassi.
Oh, okay.
I came in thinking Degrassi. That's what I want. Because because I look at the way I read comics are soap operas for nerds. I hope that's not, I hope that's okay. I think
I own it.
And when I was a kid, my mom watched her CBS soaps religiously, and you're following, because you're not just watching a story, you're watching a life play out on a soap opera. And that's the way comic books work. You're not just watching a story play out. You're watching this person's life, these people's life. This whole we're watching the life of an entire multiverse play out. And so for me, the reason I say Degrassi is because the stuff it's exciting that I want to write is, sure, superpowers and fighting villains, and of course I love that. But I also love the real down-to-earth human moments that take place in the corridor in front of your locker. And, something that I think Jeff Johns is doing so well on the Stargirl series that he did so well in the book You know, it's the balancing act of, you know, remembering that these are kids and they have the problems that kids have, teens, the kinds of things that they go through. We have a character that's a new character in Teen Titans Academy, named Chupacabra, who is Diego Perez is his real name, and he looks like a little version of Man-Bat, and
Yes.
he's one of the goth kids at school. There's a trio of goth kids called the Bat Pack, and they are orphans from Gotham. I'm not gonna tell you everything, but they and he's this kid who, for some reason, which you'll find out, he looks like this little version of Man-Bat. But we met him in Future State.
Yeah.
A couple of years later, where he looks a lot more like Man-Bat. And the reason for that is because I said, this character, this is a kid who is going through big changes with his body. And that's a thing that we all go through when we're in school.
I love that.
And so this is, for reasons that you'll find out, he's going through this particular change, and it has its ups and downs. And so that's the kind of story that I love telling. And so it feels a little bit like it leans a little more Degrassi, than Endgame. But I think you got to have both. It's all about character. It's all about that heart, and because we're watching their lives play out,
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Do you have a favorite character from the OG Teen Titans?
You can't make me do that.
Come on.
Like that's just a bomb.
I guess you'll probably figure this out, but I'm a Bat family kid. That was my thing. So whereas Tim is kind of my Robin, the introduction of Tim was Mark Wolfman's Year 3 story that showed Nightwing leaving, the Titans and coming back to knock some sense into Batman.
Yeah.
Who really lost himself after Jason's death.
Right.
And it's like that story is all like everything that made me the writer of comics that I am is that story, because it's all about big stakes and consequences, and a death happened and it drove a hero to just desperate ends, and the chickens come home to roost, and literally Nightwing is coming back and trying to get to be the elder statesman of the Bat family now, and then Tim comes in, this wild new kid who figured stuff out. So to that end, it's hard for me to not pick Dick Grayson as my favorite OG New Teen Titans character, because just everything that I do is tied to the moment he came back, after he left to become Nightwing, and when he came back. That's for me. That's the nexus of all comic book storytelling, was that story.
Well, and that's such an important distinction for that character, right? Because I've passionately argued in the past on this show that Tim is the best Robin, and I'll still defend that position ever. But here's the thing: Dick Grayson is the best Nightwing, because that transition to adulthood is what defines his arc. He outgrew Batman. He came home. He became his own man. And to me, that makes him more than just Robin, that legacy. Of course, he's the original. We'll always say, sure, he's the template, right? But he's such an important character. I mean, God, how do you not love Nightwing, right? Like the guy's just an amazing character.
And that butt, no. It's true. No, he's, listen, I absolutely agree. And I make the same argument about Tim Drake. I had a friendly nerd debate with a very well-known voice actor in the booth working on a project that has not come out yet. So I can't really talk about any of it. But this voice actor was telling me that, Tim Drake is the worst Robin. And I said, no. I said, fight me, man. Fight me. I think Tim Drake is by far, he's too good as Robin. That's the thing. That's the downfall of Tim Drake. Boy, let me tell you, I got stuff to say about Tim Drake for days. I'm not going to eat up any more time with it, but I will say that if I was in that group and had access to that character, I have ideas for Tim Drake that I would love to get to paper at some point in my career.
Listen, we definitely got a taste in Robin Eternal, which was also very awesome, of Tim being back in the spotlight, and I really hope that's a hint.
My friend Megan Fitzmartin wrote that. She's fantastic.
And yeah, awesome writer.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of hoping, with Damian running around in a weird gray outfit doing his own thing now, that maybe the Bat Office is going to be in the process of bringing Tim back into the fold in his proper place as Robin, because Damian's cool in his own way, but and kind of a pain in the ass in the other. But Tim is Tim. I mean, come on.
I don't know. Those guys don't. They don't talk to me. I don't.
I know.
If I had, they don't want to get me on the phone. I'd be like, I have so many ideas for Bat Family. You can see. I mean, the problem is, so what I did was I created Titans I created 3 Titans characters that are heavily rooted in, Batman sort of, Gotham City, philosophy, different aspects of Batman, and they're Titans, but they're like me. They're doing this Titans thing, but deep down they started as Bat Family fans. That's in that way I'm very much like the Bat Pack.
Absolutely. Well, we're rounding out on our hour, and I want to just touch on something, because our comments have been going absolutely bananas through the entire episode for the first time ever. And yet seems to be a very passionate Raven fan base that is ardently and vocally opposed to her being in a relationship with Beast Boy. Mm-hmm. And first of all, as a Teen Titans Go fan, I just love this so much, so much. And I'm wondering, what's the genesis of that, though?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, first of all, the reason why people are talking about it is because, IGN did a story, I think, and DC asked me to comment on, my thoughts on Raven and Beast Boy. And I'm just somebody who loves, all different as you have probably figured out during this interview, I love all variations of all of these things. Yeah, and I think it's a great, big, beautiful multiverse, and let's explore all of them. I think, people have very passionate opinions about these things, as well they should. I hope that, what I do in my story with all of these characters, with all of the relationships between everyone, friendship, romantic, nemesis, whatever it is, I hope that it gives people another angle on stuff, and they get to think about those relationships a little bit more. Yeah, because that's all I ever want to do. I want to explore it some more, and let's find out what this means and what could that mean. And for me, it is interesting to think about. A lot of people talk about Corey and Dick. I'm fascinated by the idea that what does it mean for that original group when they're all back together in the tower again? What does that bring up?
Yeah.
I think that's real. I think that's honest. And, as a writer, I'm never going to shy away from digging into real, honest human moments like that between characters who have history, and see what it's about, and let them hash it out a little bit, So that's my take on all that stuff. Is I think there's room for all of it, and
I think so too.
I wish that some of the people I've seen have a real strong opinion about Damian and Raven, and I got myself into trouble telling some people I'm like I love that too, but in the continuity in which I'm working, Damian's a minor and is an adult. So like that's not gonna be something that happens on my watch, but maybe if things change in terms of that, relationship and the aging and whatever, maybe we'll get to see stuff like that someday. But those aren't the parameters within which I'm working. No shame to anybody. Like, I mean, I've written in the DC AMU, and these folks are my friends, James Tucker and Alan Burnett and Jim Krieg and all the folks over there. They created some fun stuff with and Margaret Scott and Ernie Halpacker with Apocalypse War. When we saw Damian and Raven together. I mean, that stuff's great. Of course they make sense in so many ways when they're the right, when they're age appropriate.
Yes, that's very important.
And I think it's such an important angle that you've kind of tapped into, and being able to say, well, all of this is real, and you should have, deep opinions and feelings for these characters. And you've also got this premise that allows you to explore so many of these different facets of relationships and dynamics between these characters, and also the different levels that they're at in the DC universe. And I don't want to say that it's protective of certain characters or other ones, but it allows you a chance to do something that enables your own idea of the perception of the DC universe, that it is all here and that it is all happening, and it allows you to explore these characters in a way that lets us have fun with them and lets us think about them in different ways. But like comics are, and like you said at the beginning, anything is possible and things are going to change. And I think you've found a way to work with that notion with what we as readers bring into comics in such an exciting way that honestly, just kudos for that.
Well, thank you. I think kudos to you for putting that so perfectly, way better than I put it.
Good job.
That's exactly the right sentiment, I think. Look, I just think I'm just happy there's more, more characters, more stories, more versions. There's, we've got the Snyder Cut is out now, and we've got, we've got animated movies, and it's an embarrassment of riches as a DC fan these days.
If you like it, there's a chance there's some version of it out there for you.
And none of it has to negate anything. Yes. Nobody's telling you that your thing, isn't possible. It's all possible, and it's all wonderful. And I think we can all live side by side in this great, big, beautiful multiverse. Why not?
I think that is a perfect sentiment to close this thing out on, because that was just so well said.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Really, it was, because DC, and I mean all of comics, really is just like this awesome quilt that is constantly being sewn onto and added more to, and you're bringing something new and fresh to the world of Teen Titans, rather than just, well, here's another Titans #1. And I am excited as a reader.
That was my pitch, by the way. They didn't go for it.
I figured it was, and
I said I just wanted to
out of it. I wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't until just now that you confirmed it. But I just want to say to like everybody listening to this, take a chance on something new, especially if it involves characters that you're passionate about, because if you don't, you're only denying yourself. If you give it a chance and you don't like it, cool. At least you tried, And I mean, that to me is the essence of positive fandom, is giving things is being willing to try. And, just go for it.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's exactly right. I mean, it's not everything's for everybody. I mean,
and that's fine, because it's for somebody.
Yep. Yeah, the other great thing is, you also there is the promise, and I'm proof of it, that if you work at it and you can tell these stories. You can tell your versions of these stories too.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of ways to do that, and I think that's I hope that these stories get told for a long time to come, and that I'll get to read yours and some of the fans who are logging in right now, and maybe my little Teen Titans Academy blip will have some resonance for somebody somewhere down the line.
Definitely.
Well, if issue number 1 and the Future State prequel epilogue is any indication, it's going to be an outstanding book. And Tim, you've just made an incredible first leap into comics, and we wish you all the best moving forward. We really and truly do.
Thank you so much. This has been really fun.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Say hi to Cody for me.
Oh yeah, we'll talk to him. Yeah, he gets a little props. Thank you, Cody White, for making this interview happen.
Yep.
So until next time, that is it. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for our passionate commentators over on the sidelines. I really appreciate the fan involvement there. Everybody, it's been a great show. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tim Sheridan. Everybody, Teen Titans Academy #1 is on sale next week at your local comic store and digitally. Until then, read something, support your local comic shop, and above all, be good to each other. Thank you so much.